The moment I laid eyes on the male protagonist of the book, I threw up. It wasn't a figure of speech. I felt the bile rise in my throat, a visceral, physical rejection that I couldn't control. As I watched the man's face darken with a mixture of offense and confusion, I swallowed hard, fighting back another wave of nausea to offer a frantic explanation. "No, wait, it's not what you think," I gasped, waving my hand in front of my face as if to dispel the air around us. "Please, listen to me. I didn't mean to do that. It's just, I'm really sensitive to pheromones right now. It's a medical thing." The world began to spin, the edges of my vision blurring into a kaleidoscope of light and shadow. Just as my knees gave way, a large, familiar hand steadied me. I felt the warmth of a palm against the back of my neck, gently massaging the sensitive gland there. A deep, magnetic voice sounded right beside my ear, laced with a possessiveness that was usually well hidden. "My apologies," the voice said, smooth and cool as polished marble. "My friend is unwell. Please excuse us." It was Ronald. He was the only one whose presence didn't make my skin crawl. In fact, he was the only alpha whose pheromones I wasn't allergic to. "Ouch, easy on the neck," I muttered, wincing as he guided me away. Minutes later, in the quiet sanctuary of the school infirmary, I sat on the edge of the white cot, brows furrowed in discomfort. The afternoon sunlight filtered through the sheer white curtains, warming my back, but I was focused on the boy kneeling on the floor in front of me. Ronald held my ankle with one hand, his grip firm but gentle, while his other hand carefully dabbed antiseptic on a scrape I'd managed to acquire during my dizzy spell. Ronald's handsome face was scrunched into a frown of concentration. I stayed quiet. I knew better than to provoke him when he had that look in his eyes. "Why were you fighting again?" Ronald asked, his voice clear and calm, though I could hear the underlying tension. "I couldn't help it," I grumbled. Ronald was my childhood friend. Our families had been neighbors since before we were born, and we had been inseparable for as long as I could remember. When he turned 16, he presented as an alpha, a prime alpha, no less, with top-tier genetics. I remembered being irrationally angry about it for weeks. When we were kids, he had worn his hair long, looking like a beautiful little princess. I had even announced to our entire kindergarten class that I was going to marry him and make him my wife. Now, he was towering over me, radiating power. "Those jerks were releasing their pheromones on purpose," I said, gritting my teeth as the memory of the hallway incident returned. "They were trying to intimidate me. Did you expect me to just stand there and take it? It was disgusting. I felt like I was drowning in cheap cologne." Ronald's hand paused in its motion. A dark, indecipherable emotion flickered in his eyes before vanishing behind his usual calm mask. "Next time," he said softly, applying a bandage to my ankle, "just call me." Yeah, I nodded, giving him a perfunctory agreement. Even though I had presented as an omega, I wasn't exactly the delicate flower the biology textbooks described. I got into fights constantly. In fact, I had lost count of how many times I had directed Ronald to beat someone up on my behalf. Perhaps it was due to my pheromone deficiency disorder. Instead of becoming pliable and weak under the influence of alpha pheromones, the nausea made me irritable and violent. To combat the sickness, I had taken up kickboxing and self-defense years ago. Compared to the lazy alphas who relied solely on their biology to dominate, I was technically much more dangerous. "My ankle hurts too much to walk," I lied, leaning back against the pillows. I was shamelessly exploiting my minor injury. Ronald didn't call me out on it. He simply sighed, turned around, and offered me his back. I climbed on, wrapping my arms around his shoulders as he carried me out of the school. Fighting had drained my energy, and the rhythmic motion of his walking made me drowsy. Usually, being this close to anyone was torture. People always leaked a little bit of scent, and for me, that meant a headache. I had to take suppressants just to function in public. But with Ronald, it was different. He smelled faintly of clean soap and fresh rain. He claimed it was just his laundry detergent, but I suspected otherwise. "How do you control your pheromones so well?" I mumbled into his shoulder, my eyes drifting shut. "I've been around you all day, and I haven't smelled a thing. Just soap. It takes practice," he replied simply. I didn't press him. My thoughts were becoming a muddled mess, and before we reached the car, I was fast asleep. I didn't wake up until evening. Ronald was shaking me gently, pulling me out of the warmth of my duvet. "Time to get up, Brian," he said. "We have that banquet tonight. My parents are waiting." I groaned, stumbling into the bathroom to wash my face. Ronald followed me in, naturally picking up a wet towel to wipe the sleep from my eyes as if I were a toddler. "We need to leave now," he said, adjusting my collar. "Your parents will meet us there later." The banquet hall was a blinding display of crystal chandeliers and polished marble floors. The air hummed with the low murmur of polite conversation and the clinking of champagne flutes. I grabbed a small plate of pastries and immediately headed for the corner, finding a secluded spot behind a large potted fern. This was the prime location for eavesdropping. "The Vance family is really moving up in the world," a woman in a red dress whispered to her companion nearby. "I heard they secured that massive government contract. Their status is going to skyrocket. It's a pity about Mrs. Vance's background, though," the other woman replied with a sniff. "Otherwise, I might consider their son for my daughter. But you know how it is. You're dreaming," the first woman laughed. "The Vance family wouldn't even look at us now." I looked up, a crumb of cake on my lip. Asterisk the Vance family? Julian Vance? Asterisk the name sounded incredibly familiar. I tapped my temple, trying to dislodge the memory. It took me a solid minute of frowning at a mini quiche before it hit me. Julian Vance. That was the name of the male protagonist in the original novel. I had been living in this world for nearly 18 years, so fully immersed in my life as Brian that I had almost forgotten the truth. I was a transmigrator. This world was originally a book, an old-fashioned, melodramatic romance novel with an alpha, beta, omega setting. It was the classic trope: a playboy alpha male lead meets a poor, icy, high-maintenance omega female lead. He had a gambling father, a sick mother, a sister in school, the works. The male lead, Julian, would be attracted to her resilience, turn his life around, and become a devoted lover. And me? I racked my brain. I didn't seem to have a role. I was probably passerby B, a background character with no lines. And the Lynn family, the gossip continued. That boy, Ronald. If that incident hadn't happened years ago, the Vance family wouldn't be begging for scraps now. It's sad, really. The Lynn family has been on a downward spiral. Chill. Keep your voice down, her friend hissed. Don't mention the Lynn family here. I frowned. What incident? Ronald was the heir to the Lynn family, and they were doing fine, weren't they? I leaned forward to hear more, but the women were moving away. Wait, don't go, I whispered, frustrated. I need the rest of the tea. Curiosity getting the better of me, I tried to shuffle along the wall to follow them, keeping my eyes on their retreating backs. I wasn't looking where I was going. I turned a corner sharply and slammed directly into a solid chest. A wave of suffocating pheromones hit me like a physical blow. It smelled like fermented grapes and musk, heavy and cloying. My face went pale instantly. My stomach churned violently. Is this person insane? I thought, gagging. Who releases their pheromones this aggressively in public? I tried to back away, but a hand clamped onto my arm. Julian, are you all right? Someone asked from behind the man I had bumped into. The man looked down at me. Do you have eyes? I looked up. He was handsome in a conventional, flashy way, wearing a snow-white suit that was now stained with a splash of red wine from the glass he had been holding. He looked furious, but the moment his eyes locked onto my pale face, his expression shifted. Are you okay? He stammered, his tone softening instantly. I'm sorry, I didn't see you there. My brain was foggy, but the recognition was instant. This was him. Julian Vance, the Playboy protagonist. I started to speak, but the smell was too much. Ugh, I dry heaved, covering my mouth. Julian's face fell. He prided himself on his charm. He was the man who walked through a garden of flowers and plucked every single one. Yet here was someone who looked at him once and immediately wanted to vomit. I didn't want to offend the protagonist. I knew how these stories went. You didn't mess with the main character. I swallowed hard, forcing the words out. No, wait, I wheezed. Let me explain. I didn't mean it. I just have a condition. I faint around pheromones. Before I could finish, I was yanked backward into a firm embrace. The familiar scent of clean soap washed over me, instantly settling my stomach. I slumped against the hard chest behind me, letting out a shaky breath. Ronald's hand came up to cup the back of my neck, his thumb stroking the gland protectively. A shiver ran down my spine. "My apologies," Ronald said to Julian, though his eyes were cold. "My friend is unwell. He reacts poorly to strong scents." "And who are you?" Julian asked, his brow furrowing as he looked at Ronald. "Ronald. Lynn." He enunciated each syllable clearly, dropping the name like a heavy stone into a quiet pond. The atmosphere instantly tightened. The people standing with Julian went silent. Julian's expression darkened, a mix of recognition and hostility flashing across his face. "Ronald," Julian sneered. "I see." Ronald didn't engage. He kept his arm wrapped securely around my waist. "Come on, Brian. Let's go greet your parents." He turned me away, dismissing the protagonist of the world as if he were nothing more than a nuisance. "That name really works, doesn't it?" I whispered as we walked away, looking up at Ronald's sharp jawline. "You're just realizing that?" he replied, looking down at me with a smirk. "Let's go. We have to play the social game." After that night, Julian Vance seemed to have developed a fixation on me. He transferred to our school the very next week. As if fate were writing a bad script, he was assigned to our class. Even worse, he demanded the seat right next to mine. I glanced at the empty desk beside me, feeling absolutely nothing but annoyance. Everyone in the school knew I had a short fuse. No one dared to sit next to me because they valued their safety. "Great," I muttered, yawning into my hand. Another idiot attracted by my stunning good looks. "Narcissist," Ronald whispered from the seat behind me. "It's not narcissism if it's true," I shot back. "Look at him. He looks like he has kidney deficiency from too much partying." The female lead is going to have a hard time. For the next 2 weeks, Julian was relentless. He intercepted me in the hallway, tried to sit with us at lunch, and constantly attempted to show off his wealth. By the 1000th time he blocked my path to the cafeteria, I was ready to punch him. But I was worried. If I beat up the male lead, would the universe punish me? More importantly, I didn't want Ronald getting involved. If they fought, the plot armor might cause Ronald to get hurt. I needed a plan. I needed to get Julian back on his original track. "I'm going to transfer to the female leads class," I announced to Ronald one evening. "Why?" Ronald asked, his eyes narrowing. "To play matchmaker," I said. "If I get him and Sarah together, he'll leave me alone." Sarah, the book's heroine, was in class too. She was beautiful, with a face the size of a palm and delicate features that hid a steely determination. She was the top student, the scholarship kid, and the ice queen. She treated everyone with polite distance. I spent days trying to befriend her. My progress bar was stuck at about 5%. If my life depended on a system where I had to romance her, I would have been dead already. I sat at the desk across from her in the library, staring at her while she studied. "Brian," she said without looking up. "Can you please stop staring at me?" "Sarah," I said, an idea forming in my head. "Can you tutor me?" She frowned, finally looking at me. "You're ranked last in the grade. I don't think I can help you. Please." I put on my best puppy dog face. It was a weapon I had honed after 18 years of being spoiled by my parents. "I want to turn over a new leaf. I want to be a better person." The students around us gasped. The school bully, the sleeping terror, was begging for a tutor? Sarah sighed, putting down her pen. "I have a part-time job after school. I don't have time. Ask me during breaks if you have questions. Come to my house after school," I blurted out. Dead silence. Rumors had been flying that I had a crush on Sarah. Since I was basically a beta due to my condition, and 2 omegas being together wasn't unheard of, people assumed I was making a move. "I'll pay you triple your hourly wage," I added quickly. "Think of it as a private consulting gig. It's way better than working at a convenience store. Money talks. Especially in these melodramatic novels where the heroine is always broke." She agreed. That afternoon, Ronald, Sarah, and I were in the back of my chauffeur-driven car. Ronald was wiping my hands with a wet wipe, then handed me a slice of strawberry cake. "I love you so much," I groaned around a mouthful of cake. "I've been craving this all day." "Eat slowly," Ronald said, a small smile playing on his lips. "Don't spoil your dinner." When I had told Ronald about the tutoring arrangement, he had flatly refused unless he could be there too. So, my brilliant plan to set Sarah and Julian up had turned into a hellish study group, where 2 geniuses watched me struggle with basic math. The good news was that Sarah and I were becoming actual friends. The bad news was that Ronald and Sarah seemed to hate each other. They were constantly bickering over the best way to solve a physics problem or the correct interpretation of a poem. And Julian? He was still stalking me. My plan wasn't working. I have a theory, I told the internet later that night. My two friends are always fighting. What does it mean? The consensus was clear: sexual tension. They were flirting. No way, I muttered, chewing on my pen. We're in high school. Focus on your studies, people. But I watched them. I saw them whispering in the garden when they thought I wasn't looking. I saw the intensity in their eyes. Am I the third wheel? I wondered. Am I just a plot device to bring them together? The thought made my chest ache in a way I hadn't expected. Perhaps it was the stress of overthinking, but the next day, I collapsed. A fever raged through my body, turning my blood to lava. Ronald sat by my bedside, changing the cool towel on my forehead. He looked exhausted. Are you mad because I'm interrupting your time with Sarah? I croaked, my voice thick with congestion and irrational jealousy. If you like her, just go. You don't have to babysit me. Ronald paused. He pinched my cheek, hard. Stop talking nonsense. Drink your water. It hurts. I whined, tears pricking my eyes. My neck felt like it was on fire. Touch it. Please. I grabbed his hand and forced it against the gland at the back of my neck. The contact was electric. His cool fingers against my swollen, throbbing gland brought a relief so intense I let out a moan. Ronald froze. The air in the room grew heavy. His scent, soap and rain, suddenly deepened, revealing notes of something richer, darker. Magnolia. It was intoxicating. I kicked off the blankets. The heat was unbearable. I scrambled up, clumsy and desperate, and straddled Ronald's lap. I buried my face in his neck, inhaling greedily. Brian, stop, Ronald gritted out, his hands gripping my waist to hold me back. You don't know what you're doing. It hurts, I sobbed, pressing closer. Ronnie, please. Help me. It hurts so much. I only called him Ronnie when I was truly desperate. I felt his resistance crumble. He let out a ragged sigh. I'm sorry, Brian, he whispered against my hair. My precious boy. He cupped my face, his thumbs brushing away my tears. Then he kissed me. It started on my forehead, moved to the tip of my nose, and finally claimed my lips. It was a kiss of devastating tenderness that quickly turned into a desperate hunger. I clung to his collar, pulling him closer, drowning in him. The next morning was chaos. My parents were furious. Ronald's grandparents were apocalyptic. They threatened to break his legs. Ronald was currently kneeling in my father's study, facing the wall as punishment. The doctor explained that my gland had undergone a secondary differentiation. I was now a normal omega. Because Ronald had temporarily marked me during my heat, I needed him nearby for the next few days to stabilize my pheromones. So, Ronald's punishment location was moved to my house. My dad was crying into his handkerchief, lamenting that his precious cabbage had been eaten by the pig next door. My mom, however, looked secretly delighted. She had been trying to arrange a marriage between us since we were 5. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. I forced him, I thought, horrified. I jumped him. I'm the predator here. Wait. Did that mean I had to take responsibility? Or did he? At midnight, I crept into the study. Ronald was sleeping on the sofa, an uncomfortable makeshift bed. Ronald, I whispered, poking his cheek. Wake up. He stirred, his eyes opening slowly. Brian? Why are you up? I couldn't sleep. I sat on the floor beside him. Ronald, do you like me? I wasn't one to dance around the issue. I needed to know. Ronald sat up, pulling me onto the sofa with him. He wrapped the blanket around both of us, cocooning us in his scent. Our Brian has finally realized it. He murmured, resting his chin on my shoulder. Yes, I like you. I have always liked you. Only you. Really? I asked, my heart hammering against my ribs. Really? He turned his head, his lips brushing my ear. Why do you think I never let anyone else get close to you? Why do you think I learned to control my pheromones so perfectly? It was all for you. I felt my face heat up. I covered his eyes with my hand. Stop looking at me like that. He laughed, a low rumble in his chest. Go back to sleep, Brian. We have school tomorrow. No, I said stubbornly. Stay awake with me. He kissed my palm, then my wrist. The atmosphere shifted, becoming heavy and sweet again. If you don't leave now, he warned, his voice dropping an octave, you won't be leaving at all. I froze. I could feel the change in his body against mine. You. I scrambled off the sofa, my face burning. Your technique was terrible last night, by the way. It hurt. I fled the room before he could respond, leaving him stunned on the sofa. Later, from the safety of my bedroom, I sent him a link to a folder of educational videos. Just in case. A few days later, the drama with Julian escalated. You smell like magnolia, Sarah noted during our study session. She sniffed the air, looking puzzled. Did you change your cologne? Haha. Yes. I lied, fanning myself with a textbook. Do you want the brand name? She gave me a long, searching look but didn't press the issue. I was relieved. I had misunderstood her completely. She didn't like Ronald. She didn't like Julian. She just liked studying. But Julian was still a problem. He cornered me in the garden during lunch break. Move, I said, trying to step around him. You don't know the truth about Ronald, do you? Julian sneered. He's illegitimate. My father. He loved Ronald's mother. Ronald is the mistake that ruined my family. I laughed out loud. You really have the nerve to say that. I stepped closer, my expression cold. I know the story, Julian. Your father had an affair. Your mother was the mistress who destroyed the Lynn family's happiness. Ronald's mother died of a broken heart because of your family. And now you're trying to flip the narrative? Julian's face went white. He thought I didn't know. He thought the Lynn family had buried the scandal. It doesn't matter if Ronald is illegitimate or not, I hissed. The Vance family is built on sand. And I can kick it over whenever I want. I left him standing there, shaking with rage. That night, I told Ronald everything. He hugged me tightly, burying his face in my neck. My brave protector, he teased, though his voice was thick with emotion. I'm serious, I said, struggling against his grip. I'll bankrupt them. I know, he said. But let me handle it. I've been preparing for this for years. Ronald began to make his moves. He disappeared for days at a time, traveling to the capital to secure business deals that undercut the Vance family's new government contract. I was left alone at school. One afternoon, walking home, a sweet, sickly smell hit me. Before I could react, a bag was thrown over my head. When I woke up, I was tied to a chair in a dusty warehouse. Julian was pacing in front of me, flanked by 3 hired thugs. Why? Julian was muttering to himself, looking deranged. Why does everyone choose him? Even my father. He wants to give the company to Ronald. He says I'm useless. Because you are, I said loudly. Julian spun around. You're awake. Good. Scream for me. No one is coming. Are there cameras? I asked, looking around. No, Julian scoffed. No witnesses. Good, I sighed. I've been wanting to hit you for months. I flexed my wrists. The ropes were cheap. With a sharp twist and a snap of my hips, the chair tipped, and I used the momentum to smash the legs against the floor, shattering the wood. I stood up, shaking off the loose ropes. Julian's eyes bulged. But, you're an Omega, and you're an idiot, I said. I didn't wait for his thugs to react. I launched a roundhouse kick that connected solidly with Julian's jaw. He crumpled like a wet paper towel. The thugs rushed me, but they were untrained brawlers. I was a trained fighter with 18 years of pin-up aggression. By the time Sarah arrived with the police, the scene was unexpected. I was sitting on Julian's back, checking my text messages. The 3 thugs were groaning on the floor in various states of disrepair. Brian, Sarah asked, lowering the baseball bat she had brought. Hey, I said cheerfully. Did you bring snacks? Ronald arrived an hour later at the police station. He looked like he had run a marathon. He burst through the doors, saw me, and pulled me into a bone-crushing hug. He was shaking. I'm okay, I soothed, patting his back. I handled it. I thought I lost you, he whispered. The fallout was swift. With Julian arrested for kidnapping and the Lynn family exposing the Vance family's fraudulent business practices, the Vance empire collapsed overnight. Julian's father fled the country. Julian was deemed mentally unstable and sent to a secure facility. Life returned to normal. We graduated. At the celebration party, Sarah got drunk. She clung to my arm, sobbing. I liked you, Brian. You were my white moonlight. If you ever get tired of Ronald, come find me. I froze, looking at Ronald. His face was a mask of thunder. She liked me, I stammered. Obviously, Ronald growled, peeling Sarah off me. Why do you think I hated her so much? Years later, at our wedding, Sarah was the maid of honor. She joked about objecting during the ceremony, but her eyes were warm. She had found her own path, becoming a brilliant scientist and finding a partner who respected her. I took over the Shin family business, becoming a CEO who was feared in the boardroom. Ronald, surprisingly, took a step back. He managed the Lin investments from home, preferring to spend his time raising our 2 children. One evening, I came home to find our 5-year-old son holding a wooden sword, standing in front of his baby sister. "I will protect her," he declared. "Just like Papa protects Daddy." I looked at Ronald, who was smiling from the kitchen doorway. "I think he has the roles reversed," I said, loosening my tie. "Does it matter?" Ronald asked, walking over to kiss me. "As long as we're happy." I kissed him back, smelling the clean scent of soap and rain. "No, it doesn't matter at all.